Alright folks, how you doing? So something that I really want to get into on this channel is the adventures of William Wallace in France, because they were quite extensive and they were very, very interesting, and the high regard with which Wallace was held by the French court and by King Philip the Fair. That was largely to do with Wallace making such a strong impression in a very positive way on Queen Margaret of France, who was the second wife of King Edward, and she was the one who went and negotiated with the Scots army when they were 25 miles outside of London at St Albans, which I've covered in another video. But one of the most interesting aspects of Wallace's French adventures begins before he even got to France, and that was when he came across a French pirate who would remain loyal to Wallace for the rest of his life and was loyal to the Scottish cause even up to and during the reign of King Robert the Bruce himself, and he was one of the top lieutenants of King Robert when he was fighting his war against England. So I'm going to begin here by going into the biography of Thomas de Longueville, the Red Reaver, and this is going to be a multi-part series where I get into how Wallace met him. That'll be in part 2, but let's just go through his biography here. And this is on page 305 from William Wallace, Robin Hood Revealed. Wallace is supposed to have gone on a visit to France in consequence of the repeated invitations of Philip. Interesting how it's saying repeated invitations. The French king was no doubt anxious to meet a man whose name had become familiar at every court in Europe, and whose exertions in his own country, Scotland, had so often relieved Philip from the hostile visits of the King of England. On his way, the vessel on which he had embarked with a few close friends is said to have been attacked by a notorious pirate of the name of Longueville, at that time the terror of the seas and the Captain Kidd of his day. After a desperate conflict, Wallace and his party succeeded in boarding the enemy, and Longueville, being vanquished in a personal combat with Wallace, surrendered at discretion. Wallace's arrival at Paris was so well received that he obtained a pardon for Longueville, who had accompanied him to Paris in disguise. Longueville accompanied Wallace to Scotland, where he had lands assigned to him. The following account in the statistical account of the parish of Kilfons, circa 1800, goes a considerable way to establish this was the case. In the castle of Kilfons is kept a large old sword, probably made about 500 years ago, and to be used by both hands. It is shaped like a broadsword, and is 5 feet 9 inches long, 2.5 inches broad at the hilt, and of a proportionate thickness, with a round knob at the upper end near 8 inches in circumference. This terrible weapon bears the name Charteris's sword, and probably belonged to Sir Thomas Charteris, commonly called Thomas de Longueville, once proprietor of the estate of Kilfons. Sir Thomas Charteris, alias Longueville, was a native of France, and of an ancient family in that country. He accompanied Wallace on his return to Scotland, and was ever his faithful friend. Upon that hero's being betrayed and carried to England, Sir Thomas Charteris retired to Lochmaben, where he remained until Robert the Bruce began to assert his right to the crown of Scotland. He joined Bruce, and was, if we may believe Adamson, who refers to Barber, the first who followed that king into the water at the taking of Perth on the 8th of January 1313. It is to this ancient knight, and to the antique sword above mentioned, that Adamson refers in these lines from Book 4 of his Muses Threnodii. Kilfons, which famous Longueville sometimes did hold, whose ancient sword of steel remains unto this day, and of that land is chiefest evident. Early in the 19th century, a burial vault under the aisle of the church at Kilfons, that had been erected by the Charteris family, was opened. Inside it was found a headpiece, or kind of helmet, made of several folds of linen, of some strong stuff, painted over with broad stripes of blue and white, which seems to be part of the armour wherein the body of Longueville had been disposed.